Of November, yes. September 9, 2013, for the roll call, please. Here we go already.
Mayor Martini,
Here.
Council Members Ratty, Lawson, Smith, Kerrigan, Schmidt, City Manager Carey,
Here.
City Attorney Adams, Acting Clerk Donna DeCarlo. We have a quorum.
Okay, if you'd all stand for the invocation by Pastor Brad Dyrness from Sparks Church of Nazarene. Welcome, Pastor.
Thank you. This morning I was reading and I came across this verse. When the other administrators and high officials began searching for some way to find fault in Daniel, he was handling the government affairs. They couldn't find anything to criticize or condemn him. He was always faithful, responsible, and completely trustworthy. Father, I pray that this group of leaders that we have elected will be that very kind of leaders, faithful, responsible, and completely trustworthy. We thank you for their willingness to serve our community, Father, and we pray that you will give them wisdom and insight as they deal with the business of our government. And Father, we thank you for our community and for the exciting things that we have experienced in the last few weeks, the races this week, and all the things that are coming. Lord, we just pray for your wisdom, your protection, and your prosperity to be true for this community. We thank you for this moment today where we can gather together. And Lord, may you guide and direct these thoughts. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, Pastor. If you remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, Ms. Ratty, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is comments from the public. If you want to speak under comments, please fill out one of these cards, please. I have one for Dan Sikinovich. Sikinovich, close. Come on up, sir. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead and sit down, and then make sure the microphone's on, so go ahead.
Okay. My name is Dan Sikinovich. I live at 5536 Sawgrass Lane, which is at the intersection of Sawgrass Lane on one side, Ion Drive on the other side, and Sparks Boulevard. I took some pictures. Apologize for the quality, but when you take from your iPhone to your computer, they don't come out the way you thought they would. Anyway, I'm here to ask that the city consider putting either a traffic signal or a crosswalk signal. In those pictures, the last picture is an example of a crosswalk signal at Eagle Pass Drive in Sparks Boulevard, which I doubt whether it ever got used in the past 2 years. I don't know whether the developers put it in when they developed Kylie Ranch and discontinued building there, but it does not get used. The intersection is very dangerous. There are adults in my neighborhood that will not cross the street there. They'll go all the way down to Los Altos and Sparks to cross. There are children who live in our community who have to cross that street to go to Sepulveda Middle School, which is on the other side of Los Altos and Ion. I can tell you that within the past year, I have been almost run over, literally run over, no less than a dozen times. The problem there at that intersection is that the traffic traveling south comes around a bend, and it opens up to where this intersection is. And I'm not a radar gun, but I can tell you that they're going in excess of 50, 55 miles an hour because they have no traffic impediment between Pyramid and Sparks, where they got off of Pyramid, cut onto Sparks. So they're traveling at a high rate of speed. I walk my dogs every morning from about 4:30 to 5 o'clock, which is dark, and I also walk at night. And at nighttime, it's even more hazardous than it is during the day. If you look at those pictures, you'll notice that that's a very wide street. There's a left-hand turn lane when you're heading north and a left-hand turn lane when you're heading south, and then 2 lanes of traffic. You can start you can't see the traffic coming south because of the bend. And then there's, I've had this discussion with the city several times, there are bushes that are on that medium strip which grow to a height that you can't see the cars until they're almost at the intersection. These are for cars pulling out or people walking. And by the time you get halfway across the street, and you can almost gauge when the light turned green coming down Pyramid, they come in waves, and they come in both lanes. And sometimes they'll stop, and sometimes they won't. Sometimes you'll get one to stop, and then you got to be careful because traffic in the other lane will not stop and run you over. So I know these things are expensive to put traffic lights in, and I know that the traffic signals. One of my suggestions would be, and I don't know who owns the crosswalk apparatus in that last picture, but it certainly would probably reduce the cost if the city had the ability to just take that down and move it down the street and put it in at ION.
Okay, sir, wrapping up, your time's up.
Okay.
So, Sean, could you have, maybe get his contact information and have John Erickson maybe get hold of him and talk with him?
We'll certainly do that. We'll follow through on this and provide a report to the council, and we'll be contacting you very shortly with our studies. So,
Okay.
Can you give us a phone number? Yeah, phone number or something?
Yeah, you need.
did you fill out a card?
I did, but I don't think it asked for a phone number.
I didn't ask for a phone number.
Okay.
So if you could just give him.
Okay, I'll give it to him. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it. Anyone else under public comment? Thank you. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Anybody want to take anything out of order? If not, looking for a motion. Mr. Smith?
Move to approve.
Ms. Ratty?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilwoman Ratty, to approve the agenda as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 3.1, consideration and possible approval of the minutes of the regular Sparks City Council meeting for August 26, 2013. Any omissions or corrections? If not, looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty?
Move to approve.
We have a second? Mr. Lawson?
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve the minutes of August 26 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, next we have proclamations. Proclamation 4.1, National Gymnastics Day. Someone here to receive this? All right, I'll go ahead and read it. A resident gymnast. Whereas USA Gymnastics and its member clubs across the nation annually celebrate National Gymnastics Day to showcase the support of gymnastics and to encourage and promote physical fitness among our nation's youth. And whereas gymnastics provides a great foundation for building strength, flexibility, and fitness, and also for life skills, enhancing self-esteem and goal-setting abilities. And whereas National Gymnastics Day seeks to promote the value of physical fitness and good nutrition to everyone, regardless of age, gender, and the ability level, through the 2013 fitness program. And whereas on National Gymnastics Day, gymnastics clubs across the United States partner with USA Gymnastics to heighten visibility of support and encourage participation at the grassroots level. And whereas National Gymnastics Day aims to serve the greater community good by raising funds for Children's Miracle Network hospitals to provide comfort and assistance to children who are unable to provide for themselves. And whereas collectively our nation, our state, and U.S. gymnastics strive to encourage greatness and achievement in our young people. Now therefore I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim September 21st, 2013 as National Gymnastics Day. Thank you. We seem to have a health theme today. Next is proclamation for healthy living. Is there someone here to accept that? Come on up, I'll read it, and then you can say a few words, and I'll present you with the proclamation. Whereas over 35% of Washoe County school-aged children are overweight or obese, and 56% of adults in Reno and Sparks are overweight or obese. And whereas unhealthy eating patterns and too little physical activity are primary contributing factors to overweight and obesity. And whereas obesity can lead to severe and chronic health problems during childhood, adolescence, and adulthood, including heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and asthma. And whereas obesity-related conditions now account for approximately 20% of all medical spending. And whereas there are concrete steps we can take right away as concerned family members, educators, planners, healthcare providers, service providers, and community leaders to ensure that our community youth institutions and places of work combat overweight and obesity by supporting physical activity and promoting healthy eating. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, do hereby proclaim September 15th through the 21st, 2013, as Healthy Living Week.
Kelly Seals with Washoe County Health District for the record. Thank you, council members and mayor, for the proclamation. I'd like to first of all start out by thanking the mayor for his additional participation in promoting a healthy community by his participation in Bike to Work Week this past year. We are excited to have expanded. In the past, you've provided a proclamation for our Obesity Forum. This is our 5th annual forum, and we've expanded to not only the forum, but we've had a couple of additional events, and we are celebrating, as the proclamation states, Healthy Living Week. So we have I don't know if it'll show up there, a partnership with Boys and Girls Club to help educate parents and families about healthy eating and physical activity. That's going to be one part of our Healthy Living Week. Additionally, we have a screening that's going to take place at the University of Nevada, Reno to help educate the community. It's open to everybody. That's going to be on Wednesday of that week. And then, of course, you have the brochures about the Obesity Forum, and I'd encourage any of you that are available to attend, and we'd love to see you there. Thank you again for your support.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here today. Okay, next we have a proclamation for International Day of Peace. Is there someone here to accept this? Come on down. Don't be bashful. We don't bite. Well, I don't anyway. Whereas September 21st is the International Day of Peace as established by the United Nations General Assembly in 1981. And whereas the International Day of Peace is an annual day of nonviolence devoted to commemorating and strengthening the ideas of peace both within and among all nations and peoples. And whereas the International Day of Peace will serve as a reminder to all peoples of our personal and planetary progress towards peace. And whereas the International Day of Peace has grown to include millions of people in all parts of the world. And whereas anyone, anywhere, can celebrate the International Day of Peace as simply and individually as by lighting a candle at noon. And whereas the International Day of Peace is an opportunity to make peace in our own relationships, as well as promote peace in the larger conflicts of the world. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim September 21st as the International Day of Peace.
Hello, I'm Rita Sloan, and I'm with a small group called Sierra Interfaith Action for Peace, and we'd like to thank Mayor Martini and all of the council members for this proclamation. This is the second year in a row that you've done this, and We think we did not know at the time we put in this year's request how timely this would be on this day. Sierra Interfaith Action for Peace has been around since 1986 and has been involved in many peace and justice activities. We are currently sponsoring a weekly Peace Presence Vigil in downtown Reno at the Thompson Federal Building. It's 5:30 to 6 every Monday, and all are invited to join us for that. It is just 1/2 hour of standing for peace, talking about nonviolence, and we've been, in 2 weeks, we will mark our 12th year of doing this. And we none of us expected to be there quite that long. And so we thank you very much. We firmly believe that active nonviolence is the only path to a lasting peace for our world. Thank you.
Thank you so much for what you folks do. The interfaith community in Northern Nevada is really a wonderful community, and they do a lot of things that benefit our community, and I very seriously appreciate it. I've been to quite a few of their functions and things, and it's a great organization of all groups and ethnicities and religions all getting together and trying to promote peace, and it's really great. I appreciate what you folks do. Thank you.
I appreciate you too.
Okay, next is proclamation for National Wellness Week. The Chief? All right, good. Whereas the goal of National Wellness Week is to inspire individuals, families, behavioral health and primary care providers, peer-run, faith-based, and other community organizations to improve health behaviors. And whereas the 8 dimensions of wellness are emotional, environmental, financial, intellectual, occupational, physical, social, and spiritual. And whereas the 8 dimensions of wellness can be incorporated into a holistic lifestyle by exploring talents, skills, interests, social connections, and environmental conditions. And whereas wellness is more than a reduction of risk factors or the absence of disease, illness, or stress. And whereas National Wellness Week's overall theme is living wellness. And whereas wellness is not static or finite, rather it's a continuous journey. And whereas it takes a village to support people to live well within our bodies, minds, and communities. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim September 16th through the September 22nd, 2013 as National Wellness Week.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. The one who should really be before you today is Jill Valdez from HR. She's been coordinating our wellness efforts this year, and she conveniently took today off in this week, so you get me instead. But we just want to kind of give you an update during this National Wellness Week of what the city has done and the steps we've taken with the funds that you guys, the council, has authorized for wellness within the city. And overall, through the wellness program and the direction of the city manager, we set a goal for the city to have 50% participation by all active city employees to be a part of the wellness program before September 30th. I'm pleased to announce that as of last week, we had over 37% of the city employees participating in the newly funded wellness program through the city of Sparks. That's set through the four disciplines of execution program that we implemented, and really the credit to this goes to Jill Valdez, the management services team, and all the department heads who have pushed this message out to all their employees, making it available for them to participate in wellness across the city. We had an event last week, or a week before last, over at the Sparks Rec Building, where we were provided with an opportunity to have a well-cooked luncheon on a healthy side, where information was given by our partners in this, CDS, Specialty Health, Northern Nevada Medical Center. And next Wednesday, on the 18th, we are going to be having the official grand opening of the Wellness Center that has been funded, and that is in the old credit union space that is in this building here. So we are taking great strides to take this wellness message throughout the city. Tomorrow we'll have a newly updated percentage on how many people are participating, and we have full anticipation that we're going to meet and exceed the 50% goal set by the city by the end of this month. So we just appreciate that you as a council authorize these funds into the wellness of our employees, and that we can take this program forward on your behalf and behalf. And again, a lot of credit goes to a lot more people than just myself. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to consent items. Anybody want to pull a consent item? Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull 5.3, please.
5.2 or 3?
3.
3. Anyone else? Okay, looking for a motion? Mr. Schmidt?
A motion to approve items 5.1, 5.2, 5.4, and 5.5.
We have a second, Mr. Smith.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Smith to approve 5.1.2 and 5.4.5. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 5.3, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason why I'm pulling this item is because I believe in the bid process that we've wasted taxpayers' money. And I've asked the questions of purchasing, and they say we have the right. And so I just wanted to go ahead and know where, state law is that anything under $100,000 is non-prevailing wage. We're at $100,000, but we've forced prevailing wage issue, even though we have force accounts inside the bid process. Where's the law or the policy of the city council that says that we can go ahead and charge prevailing wage, even if it's under $100,000?
Chris Cobb, Capital Projects Manager, for the record. There is no policy that says you're correct. State law requires anything over $100,000 is mandatory prevailing wage. When this project was estimated, and due to its size and scope and nature, it was estimated to be at $152,000. Through the bid process, 2 days before the bid opening, we did have an inquiry that if they came in under $100,000, would they be required to pay a prevailing wage? Now, in our practice, professional practice that we do, myself and working with Dan Marin in purchasing, with numbers that can come in just under $100,000, there's an extreme potential, even with a force account, that you will broach that $100,000 mark through the course of the project. It's inherent nature in any project you do, you're going to have issues. With that being the case, if you did not require prevailing wages, as we did on this project, if they exceeded the $100,000, the contractor would be due a change order to make up those wages, plus an additional 15% on top of that change order, which is written in there. So in that case, you would actually be spending more taxpayer money by chance if you're thinking it's going to stay under 99. So with that being the case, we did require prevailing wages of everybody on it bidding the project.
When was the last project that we bid that was less than $100,000, and through change orders we went over $100,000?
Through change orders, I can't track where that is. I can tell you that we have done the same practice on at least 4 bids in the last 3 years, and it's trying to get out ahead of a problem. It's trying to preempt any issues that you may have with respect to the prevailing wages. So, as Chris has noted, this is a practice that within the professional judgment of your staff, we're looking at it and saying before a contractor comes to us and says, okay, we need to do a change order, and guess what, you're now over $100,000. And we've had multiple bids. The 4 I'm talking about all came in at $99,000 and change. And it doesn't take much to kick you over that $100,000 and put you into that problem area.
My concern is we spend $5,000 of taxpayers' money and use the word may and maybe and possible, or that we would spend that money. We're going to spend that money anyway if it goes over, but we're never going to save the money if it comes in less. You've already spent it with this contract. So I just get back to, where in staff's mind is that breaking point? Because is it at $70,000 you suddenly want to go to prevailing wage because you feel change orders may go over? You calculate for change orders on a $150,000 job with a $5,000 force account. That's what you thought you would be using at $150,000.
Correct. In every potential, I get concerned when you have an estimated job that is in size and scope and nature larger than the last job we did that was $99,000. And at the end of the day, Victorian Square Garage, when it was completed, was $99,000.75. This project is actually larger than that and includes the upstairs. So, and as old as C Street garages, there's extreme potential that you could in excess of your force account of $5,000. So we do use our judgment as we see it, that there's a high potential there that could cost the city increased funds.
And if I may, there are two other issues here at play. The $100,000 number is not just about prevailing wage, it's about bonds. At $100,000, both payment and performance bonds are required on the project, and those are costs that are built in that the contractors have to price into their contract. And within our addenda, we also required, regardless of value, you have to bond this project. And had we not done that, had we said, okay, well, if it's under $100,000, forget those rules, it becomes a fairness issue for those contractors. We had 16 contractors on this bid that bid the project. That's the largest bid field we've seen in some time. And knowing that if we said, okay, well, if you're below 100, you don't have to price it this way, but if you're above, then you do, you were going to see much wider swings in the value of the bids received. And again, it's not really a fair process to evaluate bidders against each other when the rules for what they've got to price into their project are not the same.
But isn't that state law?
State law requires the provision of bonds over 100 and requires prevailing wage over 100. It is not to say that we can't require that on projects of smaller value.
And that's my point. Where's that at? Where's the policy? Where's the thing that says what this council has decided is that point that you can, that will learn? Because you could bring, this project could come in at $70,000 and you still charge prevailing wage.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, there's no, so I just feel we don't have the authority to do this, that, you know, we're violating state law here, that a project that's supposed to be $100,000 is not subject to prevailing wage. There was phone conversations to generate this whole thing about, you know, the addendums or the request for information thing, and I'm not comfortable with spending I'd like to be fair to the 92,000 taxpayers is what I'd like to be fair for. $5,000 is what I'm being told is the difference in spread on this job between prevailing wage and non-prevailing wage. So I would prefer to go ahead and put $5,000 in the bank instead of betting $5,000 on income that we're going to have problems with the job. So, thank you.
So we are, we're able to do this if it's less than state law. We're not violating the state law by doing this.
Correct.
Plus, you know, it's you guys make a recommendation to us to approve this or not approve. All we have to do if we don't like it is not approve it. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
So if you don't like it, just don't vote for it.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments? Looking for, Ron Smith.
Just to be sure, the engineer's estimate was 154.
About $152,000 to $154,000. Just as I said, the size and scope of this project was much larger in Victorian Square, which was at $99,000.
And so you had every reason to believe that the bids would come in somewhere close to that anyway, right?
Yes, sir.
So in this, the contract that we're voting on today was for $99,876. So all this contractor would have to do is spend $124, and he's over the $100,000 mark. And if you didn't charge it, we'd have to go back, and he'd have to come up with the rest of the money for that.
Correct. There is a $5,000 force account
Right.
built in here.
Right.
And that was due to the nature of the garage. C Street garage is very old, and we've had a lot of issues.
Yeah.
But the potential is extremely there.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, comments? Ms. Ratty?
Ready to make a motion?
Go ahead.
I move to award the C Street Parking Garage Lighting Retrofit Project bid number 13/14-004 as outlined in the staff report in the amount of $99,876,000.
Do you have a second? Mr. Smith?
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve 5.3. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Okay, 6.1, consideration and possible acceptance and approval of an amendment to the MCSAP High Priority Grant and International Agreement with the City of Reno. Who's doing this? Nobody? Brian? No? Anybody from Mr. Carey?
This item does come from the police department, and it is a change in the amount of federal funds that were received. They will be incorporated into the previous plan. The increase was from $29,000 of available federal funds to $57,500. These funds come from the Motor Vehicle Carrier Division and are used to support joint commercial vehicle inspection programs in our community. And staff does recommend your approval of the grant increase.
Questions? Mr. Lawson?
Not costing the city of Sparks any more money, we're just getting more federal funds.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else looking for a motion? Mr. Kerrigan?
Move to approve.
Have a second, Ms. Ratty?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Kerrigan, seconded by Councilwoman Ratty to approve 6.1 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 6.2, consideration of possible acceptance of the purchase of computer-aided dispatch and records management systems from Tiburon, Inc. in the amount of $221,963,000. Now, Chief Allen.
I apologize for 6.1. I didn't even know our own acronyms. When I looked over the agenda, I'm like, I don't know what that is. That's my fault. I apologize.
This too shall pass.
Too many acronyms. Anyways, on item 6.2, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd just like to come before you in looking at the police department and fire department moving towards the Tiburon data collection system versus the West Covina CAD RMS system that we are currently using. The current system that we are using was originated in 1988. It's used, we are the only agency outside of Southern California that uses this system, and it's really outlived its life cycle for the city of Sparks. We attempted to go to a Spillman-based system with the state. That was unsuccessful. And then we have been approached by the city of Reno, who received an approximate $800,000 grant to upgrade the Tiburon system, in which we were included to participate in if we paid for our own licensing agreements and services that we needed for Sparks specific. This is a great opportunity for the city of Sparks. A new CAD RMS system of this type would be over $1 million on its own if we were to purchase it outside of this agreement with the city of Reno and Tiburon. And this will allow us to move forward, completing a regional, or using the same regional system throughout all three agencies, which will allow us to have redundancy within the dispatch centers, where in case one dispatch center goes down, the other can serve as a backup temporarily until we can move personnel between the two centers. This will have really no effect on the day-to-day operations of either the police and fire as far as the full units, just the manner in which we collect our data on the inside and how we use the computer-aided dispatch. One thing that it will do for the police department, it will allow us access to all of the city of Reno and Washoe County data, which will greatly assist us in our investigative abilities with the city of Sparks. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Questions, Mr. Kerrigan?
Hey, Chief, is REMSA going to get the same? That's the thing we were arguing about, right? About whether REMSA was going to get on the same system.
They may not go to the same system, but what this will allow is there to be only one interface developed for all three entities. Reno Dispatch with Washoe County, they are now a combined center. The city of Sparks will be on the same operating platform, so whatever interface is developed between dispatch centers and REMSA, it'll be eased based on the fact that we won't be running our own independent system. So that CAD-to-CAD interface is still in the development phases in those through the Tri-Data study. So it's a little too early to determine exactly what system REMSA will be using.
And if we did this by ourselves, you said it was what, 1.5 mil?
It's approximately 1.2 to 1.5 if we were to buy.
So we're saving $1 million.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Questions, Ron Smith?
And this includes the tribe and the Washoe County School District too, doesn't it?
There are 7 current users on the Reno Tiburon group system. It's Reno Police Department, Washoe County Sheriff's Office, Reno Fire, Truckee Meadows, Carson City, Reno Sparks Indian Colony, and you have both the TMCC Police Department and the Nevada Department of Higher Education, UNRPD, are all operating on this one regional system. We are being added on to that system, and that's where we see the cost savings.
And we talked about this before, and it was so expensive, we just couldn't do it at the time. So I think this is an opportunity for us.
Absolutely. If this opportunity was before us before we attempted to go to Spillman, we would not even have considered Spillman, and we would have joined this system earlier.
Right. Thank you.
Ms. Ratty?
I'm just very supportive of us moving forward on this because it does make the conversation around EMS and transparency of data and communication significantly easier to come to some sort of conclusion on. So I'd like to make a motion that we move to accept the proposed quote and purchase of the Tiburon data collection system in the amount of $221,963.
You have a second, Mr. Kerrigan?
Second?
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Kerrigan to approve 6.3. Any further discussion? 2, I'm sorry. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. I didn't have my glasses.
Thank you.
And I can't remember that long. Moving on to 6.3. Consideration and possible award of the 2014 Permanent Patch Program, bid number 1314-006, PWP number WA 2013-319 to Sierra Nevada Corporation. Mr. Martini.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. John Martini, Assistant Director for Community Services. Before you today is approval of a contract for our permanent street patching program. In fiscal 14's budget, you had approved $150,000. We have a backlog of work to get done. We put a bid on the street for a larger quantity. The bid came in at $327,000 from SNC. The $150,000 is allocated. We will be seeking a budget augmentation of $177,007 once the fiscal 13 final audit numbers are done. We've got a bit of patching to catch up with, thanks to a lot of street cuts, and we're seeking your approval today.
Questions for John? Mr. Carey.
Just to clarify, John, the funds for the additional square footage are in the fund. You're just waiting for the end of the year.
That's correct, sir.
It's fully funded from inside of the available funds.
As the fees come in, as they cut our streets, they have piled up. We just need to move the money. Once Mr. Kronk says we can.
Questions? Motion? Mr. Smith.
Move to approve.
Ms. Ratty.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Ms. Ratty to approve 6.3. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thank you, John. Public hearing action items unrelated to planning. Second reading, 7.1, second reading and possible approval of Bill Number 2659, an ordinance amending Chapter 9 of the Sparks Municipal Code, revising the definitions of drug paraphernalia, providing other matters property related thereto. Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Sparks Municipal Code's definition of drug paraphernalia is based upon Nevada law. And last session, the Nevada legislature passed Senate Bill 410, which created the sterile hypodermic device program. That essentially decriminalized the possession of a hypodermic device, even if it has trace amounts of illegal substance on it. So essentially, other than robbing and beating the citizens of Sparks and burglarizing the property, the drug addicts in our community now have one less thing to worry about when it comes to us prosecuting them.
We can sleep better at night. Questions? Ms. Ratty.
Go ahead and make a motion.
Please.
Move to approve Bill number 2659.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
It's a public hearing.
I'm way ahead.
Yeah, I'm way behind. Okay, this is a public hearing item. Anyone in the audience like to speak to this particular item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for action. Ms. Ratty.
Approve Bill number 2659 as outlined by staff.
Do I have a second? Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve 7.1 as outlined by staff, Bill number 2659. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. 7.2, second reading and possible approval of Bill number 2660, an ordinance amending Chapter 14 of the Sparks Municipal Code to adopt the 2012 International Fire Code and providing other matters properly related thereto. Mr. King.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Fire Marshal Bob King for record.
I'm here today to ask for your approval to amend Chapter 14 of the Sparks Municipal Code to adopt our new 2012 International Fire Code. I'll read you a little background about the fire codes. And the International Code is the predominant fire code used throughout the nation. On a 3-year cycle, they are updated and published by International Code Council. The purpose of the code is to establish the minimum requirements consistent with nationally recognized good practice for providing a reasonable level of life safety and property protection from the hazards of fire, explosions or dangerous conditions in new and existing buildings, structures and premises, and to provide safety to firefighters and emergency responders during emergency operations. The fire officials in Northern Nevada wanted to bring a more consistent approach to the way fire codes are adopted and interpreted. And much like the building officials in Northern Nevada have done over the last 2 code cycles, a steering committee was formed to develop the 2012 Northern Nevada fire amendments that you have before you. This committee, consisting of fire code officials from 10 different jurisdictions throughout Northern Nevada, has authored an amendment package that will be adopted throughout Northern Nevada. Members of building organizations were also invited to our meetings to participate in the amendment process and give us their suggestions and ideas, thoughts, or changes they'd like to see in the code as well. And so with that, just go over a couple of the procedures that were kind of important with our process. Together as a committee, we had to meet the minimum state fire marshal regulation requirements, because the state fire marshal under NRS has the minimum state or fire and life safety requirements for the state. So we cannot adopt anything that's below what their requirements are. We can actually have requirements that are more stringent, but nothing more below. So we had to review theirs and make sure that we're on that line as well. We must meet the individual operational needs of all of our jurisdictions, such as resources, personnel, topography, jurisdictional boundaries, type of occupancies, airports, wildland, anything you can think of that we have to take care of in our own jurisdiction. We had to look at that as well, and as a committee, be consistent with our codes, but try to come together knowing we have our own needs and own abilities. So we had to review the 2006 International Fire Code, which is the code that we're currently using, and review the 2009 International Fire Code, which is a code that was not adopted across the board in all the jurisdictions in Nevada. Not too many of the jurisdictions out there were ready to adopt the 2009. There were quite a few different little issues in it that nobody really wanted to get into at the time, so we all waited until the 2012. So we're actually 6 years past now, and it's time to adopt a new code. So that, along with the state fire marshal regulations, we developed the amendment package that you have to be adopted amongst all 10 jurisdictions, which is something that for fire regulations is a first in our Northern Nevada area. We've never done this before, and it's really, really a good opportunity for architects, engineers, developers, contractors, and business owners, because for the majority of all the amendments that we make to the fire code now, they'll be consistent across the board. Developers love that. They've been asking for that for years. Contractors have been asking for that. And same with business owners. When we go out and do inspections on businesses, they've been asking for the same thing. So we did develop this committee this year and developed this package. And again, we mirrored what the building officials did. In fact, we even used the same consultant that they had for the process. And throughout 8 different meetings that we held together as a group, we came up with the amendment package that you have today. And so with that, I'm asking for approval to amend Chapter 14 and adopt Northern Nevada Fire Code Amendment Package.
Bob, have any other jurisdictions approved this yet?
Yes, I believe 2 or 3 have gone to their second reading already and been approved. I believe it was Fernley, Carson, and 1 other out of the 10 so far, and the others are either in the first or the second reading phase.
Okay. Questions, Mr. Lawson?
So if
I'm trying to wrap my head around this, because it seems like, to me, everyone else has got 5,000 square feet, and we're asking for 3,600 square feet.
You're on page 12?
On your table on page 12.
Yes. As I mentioned in there, there are some differences in the 10 jurisdictions, so, just depending on resources, personnel, topography, everything that you play into it, there are some differences. And so each one of us looked at all of these and said, okay, what do we need for our jurisdiction as well? For the most part, you'll see that it's the same. For things like this, there was definitely some differences there. You'll see that Tahoe Douglas Fire Protection District and Sparks Fire Department both went with the 3,600 square feet. Our reasoning for that is, in the fire code, there's an appendix in the back that talks about fire flow and required fire flow for buildings, no matter what size. Anything from 0 to 3,600 square feet is the minimum fire flow. 3,601 and above, and that fire flow requirement starts going up. So there were two of our jurisdictions, two of us felt that there's our reason right there that we wanted for sprinklers in homes. We have a great basis to base it on. The 5,000 that you see there was actually a number that nobody could come up with why we had that number. It was a number that was thrown out in a couple code cycles ago, and some of the agencies out there, Reno was one of them, and I think there were a couple other, that they were already enforcing 5,000. So since they've been enforcing it for quite some time, they didn't want to go away from that. I chose to stick with the 3,600 because it was justifiable. I had a reason for it to stick with the 3,600. You need more fire flow, which means it's a larger house, which means you have more fire load in the house, which means the fire can propagate that much quicker.
Just reading your table, I see, we have, if this was adopted, we'll have the most stringent code, because we're including the garage in there, and we're including the response time. And Reno has exempted the garage and so has Truckee Meadows. So I thought the idea of this codes coming together was to make it so that if I do business in Reno, Sparks, or Washoe County, I'm going to have the same code. It seems to me we're setting ourselves as a more stringent code than the other two entities in our immediate area.
Yeah, well, it's very true. There are some areas in here where we may have differences than others, and they may have differences than us because of just our own resources and that. One good thing to think about with this, too, is we're actually being more lenient even with what you see here in this table. Because according to the International Fire Code 2012, all our occupancies built after the adoption of this code would be required to be sprinkled. All of them, no matter what. But we knew that the building official process, when they were going and doing theirs, they decided to amend out that section of the code, of the IRC, because homes are built under the International Residential Code instead of the International Building Code. They agreed as a committee that they were amending that out. We decided then, okay, we didn't want to fight that at this time, even though we, as fire officials, feel that fire sprinklers do save lives. We kept with what we felt was important at this time, and in the future we'll see, how we want to go with it. So we're actually
I'm just having a hard time
more
trying to create economic development that we're making it harder to do business in the city of Sparks, and that's where I'm going to have the rub.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we talked, it's been over a year now, I think, when we talked, and that was the figure I came up with, too, with 5,000 square foot house. In the regulations as they're written now, it's not every house that gets sprinkled. It's every new house past 6.5 minutes or response time, no matter what size they are. Right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you have a house under your regulations over 3,600 feet and they're within the 6.5 minutes, they get sprinkled also. They have to be sprinkled.
Yes.
Okay, and I've asked you this question already. I just want it on the record. These homes, whether we go with 3,600 square feet or 5,000 square feet, if they're not sprinkled now and they sell, they don't have to be brought up to code.
No, sir. It's not a retroactive clause. It's for any new house built after the adoption of this code.
And, okay, so, and that goes for over the 6.5 minute mark, too. Anybody out there that doesn't have any sprinklers, if they put their house up for sale, they don't have to bring it up to code?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Well, I was going to bring up the fact that if you look at ours, we're the only one that has a 6 minute, over 6 minutes, right? So in other words, you don't have to sprinkle anything unless it's 6 minutes past a fire station, correct?
Well, no, it says sprinklers are required when any one of the listed conditions are met. And Reno adopted the 6 minute response time as well for this time. They haven't had it before, but they adopted it for this time.
Okay, so, okay, wait a minute. So let me get, so when any one of those,
Yes, if they're over 3,600 square feet, a brand new home, or the 3 stories or greater, which meets the same requirement that we have for apartment buildings as well. Even
okay,
though all
but
of those
in
are-
our city, if you build a brand new house that's 3,600 square feet, no matter where it is, it has to be sprinkled.
Yes, sir.
And the builders bought off on that.
We had them at our meetings.
Well, I don't think they did. I bet you $100 Mike's going to say they didn't buy off on that, because we've been arguing about this for a long time.
Did you get an email saying they didn't?
No, I didn't get, I don't remember it. Okay.
Ms. Ratty.
I just want to clarify that now because he may have confused me. So if it's any house, what Councilman Smith said, any house that's over 6 minute response time.
Yes.
6 minute response time as defined by,
From the nearest fire station, as defined through our GS department, we have a calculation that we utilize for that 6 minutes.
so when we make changes in staffing due to various economic conditions and response times change, does that affect
Well, that-
new development?
That wouldn't affect the response time. Response time still goes from the time of call to the time out of the station to the time to the house from the nearest fire station.
Well, I guess what I'm suggesting it would if we were rounding out engines or if we were doing any of the many things that were
I'm sure that
contemplated but
could, yes.
fortunately never had to be implemented during. So how often do we measure that response time? How often does it fluctuate?
Well, we have not had to do any configuration of response times for a while because we haven't had anything built out for quite some time.
Oh, okay. But new development areas could change response
Yeah,
times.
and the majority of the development areas that we currently have on the books, we have already done all of our response time criteria on. We have a map, a response time map that's
Yeah.
already developed.
Right.
So unless the only places that we don't have it are the places that don't have actual street sections in.
But it's not like it's got a scheduled update or evaluation. You do it based on need?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kerrigan.
I'm sorry, I should have asked this question before. What does our code say right now? That it gets sprinkled if it's over 6 minutes, is that correct?
Over 6 minutes.
So
yes.
anything under 6 minutes, it doesn't. So we're completely changing what we're doing right now.
It's adding the 3,600 square feet, yes, sir.
Nobody sees a problem with that? I mean, why don't we just change it to say if it's over 6 minutes, like we've always had? What's wrong with that? I mean, well, if this is a code, I mean, can we change it just so we can say that it's anything over 6 minutes, like it's been in the city for the 14 years I've been here?
Yes, sir, you have that opportunity
Oh, okay.
at this point in time to make any amendments to this amendment package.
Well, because for 14 years that I've been sitting on the city council, that's what your department has said has been okay, right?
Yes.
And so what was the
yes.
reasoning to change it now?
Well, we
When
actually
we're in an
wanted to
economic
go.
downturn and
No, we wanted to actually go with what the code language says, that's been in the code language for 2 cycles now, and that's all new R occupancies sprinkled. But we decided as a committee, as a group, to stay consistent, that we're going to stick with a square footage and/or height and/or response time instead of going with all. Plus, the residential homes are built under the IRC, and that's been amended out.
Okay, so I guess my question is, any heartburn from the fire department if we just throw everything out and stick with the 6 minutes? And say if it's outside of 6 minutes from the nearest fire station, it gets sprinkled like it's been forever? I mean, has that hurt? I mean, give me an example of how that's hurt the city, that we've gotten hurt by this.
No, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Ed Lawson.
Still kind of worry about that 6 minutes. Just, for example, God forbid we got to close Fire Station 5. Now we don't have a fire station within 6 minutes of all of that community out there.
It's very true.
So, and we're halfway through a project that builder's building, and now the rules change? I see a can of worms here that the unintended consequences could be huge.
Well, if a development's already had their approvals for the handbooks, everything's been approved already for that development, then the rules at that time would stay for those. It wouldn't just all of a sudden change. That part of it wouldn't, because it's already been approved to go. Okay. We have that situation already with some places in DeAndrea, up in Miramonte, where those handbooks have already been approved, and we had discussions with developers on that. They asked that same question. Well, I know I haven't been in for quite a few years now because I can't build right now, so is that all of a sudden going to change? I said, no.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you may have just answered my question. Some of these developments up there, will the current infrastructure be able to put out a fire if they build a larger home in there, or do you need more flow? And that homeowner will now be responsible for running more lines up to their house.
If they already have the infrastructure in, then it will work for that house. We'll ensure that whenever those houses are built, that they have the proper flow for that house. If they're over 3,600 square feet, we'll ensure they have the flow according to the table in the appendix.
Okay.
Ms. Ratty.
Well, I just want clarity around, so what's the impetus for doing this now? The impetus for doing this now is that we've received an updated set of international fire code standards, and so that's why we're reviewing it.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like we just out of the blue said,
no,
let's go change this. There's been a year-long process where you've been meeting with all of your peers and stakeholders because we didn't do anything in 2009 when the safety codes were updated. And so now that 2012 is published, that's the impetus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Carey.
Bob, so to be clear, the Sparks Fire Department has 3 conditions which could trip the requirement for residential sprinklers. The first is the 3,600 square feet, which is to ensure that the water system could supply sufficient fire flow for the fire load that would be present in a home that large. And you've chosen 3,600 square feet as the standard for the water systems that are typically being installed in our residential areas. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you chose the 3 stories or greater because of the height of the structure, and that our first responding engine company would not have the high ladders and the ability to do snorkeling operations and those types of things. In a 3-story operation, it's better to have those buildings sprinkled because our nearest truck resources would be coming from some distance, and a fire on an upper floor would be difficult to stop in the room of origin.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the third one is well established by our planning and zoning, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this goes back to the early 1990s as we were trying to find cost-effective solutions for our fire service as we expanded into the Spanish Springs area. And we knew that we would have larger lots which would have a lower density. And the agreement between the county and the city originally was to have two units per acre, as I recall. And that is a very low frequency of structures, but also a frequency that would require us to meet a 6-minute response time. If that was not in place, we would have had to incur the cost in the building process of equipping and manning additional stations. And we did design our master plan for Spanish Springs and for the DeAndrea developments, the 2 most recent ones that I'm familiar with this 6-minute response time to lower the number of fire stations we would have to construct and therefore lower our city operating costs. And by using the 6-minute, we're allowing ourselves the extension time to reach those homes and those fires of origin by having the fire sprinkler work in those distant homes from our fire stations. So if we were to eliminate the 6-minute response time, that would begin to have pockets in our city where the fires could be more intensive and therefore could threaten the entire structure rather than the room of origin, or could, in fact, become a more costly fire. And that's my understanding of why you've developed those three criteria. Have I got that right?
Yes, sir, I couldn't have said it better myself.
And it's your professional recommendation, sir, that all three of these standards are appropriate for our community?
Yes, sir, I feel that way.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was under the impression that the three-story limit was for apartment buildings and such.
Well, all apartment buildings by code are sprinkled
Okay.
anyways. The 3 stories is because of the height and because of the time it takes us to get to the top of that type of structure.
How many do we have?
The hose lay, the amount of hose we have in that
How many
all
how many
factors in there.
three-story single-family dbuildings do we have in Sparks?
I could not answer that.
Do we have any?
Yes.
Sure, you got some.
Yeah.
Okay.
It might be something that you would answer with a look at topography. While the norm would be to build 1- and 2-story homes in our community, as you get into hillsides, the developer often does create a third floor, and just to take advantage of the slopes. I've also have seen in some of our tract developments where they've begun to use a dormer type arrangement in the upper floor.
Yes.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, let's open up the public hearing. Anyone in the audience like to speak? I have one card, Mr. Dillon. Come on down, Mike, you have 3 minutes. Okay. If there's anyone else who wants to speak, please fill out a card. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and distinguished members of the Sparks City Council. For the record, my name is Mike Dillon. I'm the Executive Director for the Builders Association of Northern Nevada. We represent 550 members with about 15,000 employees or working families here in Northern Nevada. I just want to the process that has been talked about, I want to, first of all, thank the Community Development Department, the Building Department, Mark Miranda, Neil Kreutz, and everyone on how we did move forward with the building codes. I'd also like to thank Mr. King for participating in the multi-jurisdictional fire process. I thought it was very good. Clearly, there's just one piece that we have an issue with. We have no problem with the response time issue or the water supply issue. What our issue has been and what everyone else has adopted, and what Washoe County and Reno, it was just talked about who else has adopted. Those two have adopted these in the last week, so at 5,000 square foot per house. So, and that was the recommendation of the committee that we all participated in, was that it would be 5,000 square foot for Northern Nevada. So that's the position that we support. We hope that the city of Sparks will have the same thresholds as every other jurisdiction in Nevada, and we appreciate participating in the process. And thank you, Mr. King, too.
Thanks, Mike. I think we got some questions. Mr. Lawson?
What's, just out of curiosity, since we're including the garage space, what's a typical three-car garage space take up in square footage?
I'm 800 feet, maybe. I don't know. I'm guessing. And yeah, this does include the garage spaces.
Yeah, so if we adopted 3,600, we're really a 2,800 square foot house. It's getting pretty small. Okay, thank you.
Scarnett.
Mike, in Reno, did they adopt the 5,000 square feet and over 6 minutes?
They have a response time
So,
requirement.
but you have to have two. You have to meet both of those, correct?
If they didn't,
No,
yeah.
it says F. It says the structure must be greater than 5,000 square feet and must be outside of 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So in Reno, you have to be outside of 6 minutes and it has to be greater than 5,000 square feet. Is that what they're going to adopt? Because that to me seems more logical. Okay, because we've been using a 6-minute response time. Because if you go to 36, it's like Ed said, if you build a 2,800 square foot house, no matter where you build it in Sparks, you're going to have to sprinkle it. That's what we're saying.
And if that's a direction that the council would like to take today, we can amend that to have the same F amendment on
Well, that's
ours
my,
as well.
I kind of, we've been living with that 6-minute response time since I've been on here, and I have not seen a problem. And I think if we go to 5,000 square feet and the 6 minutes, I don't see a problem with that either. That would be my druther.
Okay, do we have any more questions for Mike, or is he free to go? Because we've still got the public hearing going. Okay, Mike, thanks. Any further public hearing items? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for action. Mr. Carey.
I just wanted to see if I could clarify Mike's comment. We have not had in the past this square footage requirement, but we have built quite a number of homes in our Spanish Springs area that would be under 5,000 square feet. And it would now only require sprinkling those homes that were larger than 5,000 square feet and are also out of the 6-minute response. So we would actually have a change there in the original philosophy that you're applying? Or would that lead to new homes less than 5,000 square feet being exempt from the requirement, is my question. It's an and.
That's what it sounds like, yes.
Okay. So that would represent, in some of our new areas where you do have homes less than 5,000 square feet, which in the prior single application of 6 minutes, we've been able to get those sprinklers so that we have an opportunity to get there. Now we would have smaller homes outside of 6 minutes that we wouldn't be reaching in that critical period.
No, I would not want it written that way.
Well,
no, I would.
The only thing I'm trying to do is clarify Mike's
Yes.
question, and I'm not debating it. I just wanted to make sure it was explained properly on how it would be applied, particularly in Spanish Springs where we have the low density and a large opportunity for smaller, 3,600 square foot homes to go in. Would that reduce the areas that are being sprinkled? I just wanted to make sure the councilman had some clarity on that.
Yes, because we definitely do not want to get rid of our 6-minute response time criteria. We've had that for quite some time, and we feel very comfortable with that criteria. So they have, let's see, F says the structure must be greater than 5,000 square feet and be outside of the 6-minute response time. So that's very correct. If you went with F, then you would have to be greater than 5,000 square feet outside of the 6-minute response time. My suggestion would be the 3,600 square feet outside of the 6-minute response time.
I'm sorry. Say again.
Would be the 3,600 square feet outside the 6-minute response time.
So it's important, the application of the word "and," when we say one condition's being met. And I apologize if I've got us off track with my question, but it is real important in a code how we're going to apply the Reno sub-question F, which has, in italics, it has the word "and."
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying one of these conditions are met. So if it's over 6 minutes, the only homes that would be constructed with fire sprinklers would be those homes greater than 5,000 square feet. Okay. And I'm just pointing out that that has not been our pattern to date in the Spanish Springs or the De Andrea area. We have not used size requirements and have effectively built a number of these homes.
No, just use 6 minutes.
No, that is very correct. If that's the case, then we would leave it at just any homes outside of 6-minute response time.
Correct.
Makes it simple for everybody.
Yeah.
That's all I was trying to
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have contracts with Washoe County Fire Department where they get to some homes out in that area?
Yes, you can.
So if we can't get to them within 6 minutes, can they?
We do have an automatic aid agreement with Truckee Meadows Fire Department.
Mm-hmm. So how many homes are we really talking about? Out towards Pyramid Lake, or what are we talking about here?
No, a lot of our homes are well outside of
I mean, without any fire coverage at all, because if we have a contract with Washoe County, how many fire departments do they have out there?
They have one fire station on La Posada.
On La Posada.
So it's just outside the city limits.
Okay, so
and they help to cover our District 5.
Okay.
But for example, proposed new development in Copper Canyon, which is probably a 10 to 12 minute response time from either our Station 2 or Station 3. This is where the 6-minute response time really comes to our advantage for public safety. It allows those fires to be contained until we can get there. We don't have any proposed fire station in that area of town. And this is the type of situation where the 6-minute response time has worked very well for us and very well for the public. My professional opinion is we have some movement on the 3,600 foot. We could move to 5,000, but it would be an or. A home that either meets 5,000 square feet or outside the 6-minute response time should be sprinklered. That would be my professional.
No, I don't have a problem with that one.
And I think one thing we have to remember, we're talking about new homes here. We're not talking about existing homes, are we?
Correct.
I think that's what we're getting balled up here, is we keep thinking about this is on existing homes, but it's not. It's brand-new homes. And these are, and the ones that are already approved with handbooks doesn't apply to them either, does it?
Correct.
Okay. Ms. Ratty?
Actually, I think we finally got to the clarity, so just to say it back to make sure. That and or word is very important. You would be advocating for keeping the and in, and if there's room, I'm sorry, the or in, sorry. And if there's room for compromise, it is to make our 5,000 more consistent with everybody else. Because it seems to me like what the tension here is between consistency, on the one hand, which I understand the need for that within the development community, I understand why they would want it, versus hanging your hat on some data or some meaningful standard. I think consistency is kind of out the window because we have to have a grid with 3 rows and 8 districts that tells us how we're each doing it a little bit differently. So I think to get to closer to consistency, 5,000 makes sense. But I would like to see us keep the or because it has been working for us for some time. And I really appreciated Sean's first, Mr. Carey's first interjection where he really gave us the background, because I wasn't here when why that 6-minute came into play, and that made a lot of sense to me as to why we have that 6-minute time zone, what that allows us to do in terms of when we're thinking about where we're going to put a new fire station. That was new information for me, so that was helpful. So I would like to see us stay with or, but I'm willing to compromise on the 5,000.
Mr. Schmidt?
Chief, thank you for stepping in on this, and I just want to make sure we're going to make this real simple, right? You just want something that's 6-minute rule, 5,000 square feet. Either one of those apply, it gets sprinkled. I'll make that motion to accept the report with that change.
Mr. Kerrigan?
All right. You're saying if there's a 5,000 square foot house anywhere in Sparks, it gets sprinkled?
That's correct.
And the reasoning?
The reason is because of the increased fire load. Also, a house of that size has much more difficulty for us to try to reach the seat of the fire. Oftentimes, just based on the size of the home, if the fire gets too much of a head start, just trying to get to the seat of the fire is very, very difficult for us.
Ms. Ratty?
Clarification on the motion because
Is there a motion?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Ron made a motion. So you're saying the chart shows 3,600 square feet, 3 stories or greater, and over 6 minutes? And I thought the 3 stories or greater was also compelling. So were you intentionally leaving that one out?
I didn't hear the chief say that was an issue, but if the chief says that 3 stories has to be in there, so basically you're saying the only change is charge goes from 3,600 to 5,000?
Yeah. That's the question I'm asking.
So is that the motion?
But I believe the chart also has that any of those conditions, and that's what we're staying with, right?
Or.
Okay.
I think that would provide you the consistency with all the other agencies. Almost all of them designated 5,000 square foot as a good candidate for fire sprinklers. Those are very rare homes. We could get some movement on the 3 stories as well. Again, that's an area where stretching hose lines and none of our ground ladders can reach that. So it does make it very difficult. But again, I think that only 2 agencies put those in as requirements. So again, That would be up to your discretion. Obviously, it would help us, but again, would that put us at a disadvantage with other, cities and counties? Possibly.
Kerrigan.
Yeah, but generally, if it's going to be 3 stories, it's going to be apartment, right, or condo, and we sprinkle those anyway, right? So you wouldn't have any heartburn if we just said 5,000 square feet and over 6 minutes, and leave out the 3 stories or greater, get in consistency with everybody else?
I believe we could live with that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I guess I'm still looking for clarity. What was the motion?
Okay.
This was just a change in the package was submitted from 3,600 to 5,000. That's the only issue we've had come before us that the Builders Association has problems with. It appears everybody's agreed on the 3 stories, and the committee just some didn't adopt it.
Do I have a second? Ms. Ratty?
I'll second that. Including the 3,600 square feet or 3 stories or greater or over 6 minutes.
What?
5,000 feet.
Sorry, 5,000. I meant 5,000.
We knew you meant that. Any questions, Mr. Lawson?
I just think we need to be closer to the other folks, and we're conditioning it up even more, so I'm not going to vote for this just because of the 3 stories or greater.
Mr. Smith?
I'm sorry, I thought he said, don't even touch the 3 stories. Would you just make your motion over again and include or exclude the 3 stories, so I'll be clear?
My motion was the only change on the chart would be going from 3,600 to 5,000 square feet. Everything else on the chart would remain the same.
So you'd have to make a new motion.
Because that does include the 3 stories.
Yeah, we have a motion on the floor.
So that does include a 3-story house?
Yes.
Okay.
Does everyone understand the motion? Are you ready to vote? Any further questions? Seeing none, please vote. Okay, it goes down 3-2. Okay, do we need another motion? Who wants to make a motion? Mr. Smith?
I'll attempt. I move to change the 3,600 square foot to 5,000 square foot, eliminate the requirements for a 3-story building, and over a 6-minute response time would be any size home out there.
So that's 6 minutes or 5,000, right? Do you have a second, Ms. Ratty?
Second.
Questions, Mr. Lawson?
I'm ready to vote.
So am I.
Okay, could you clear the board, please, back room? Okay, all those in favor, or please vote, I'm sorry. I'm confused, dazed and confused.
Okay.
Passes unanimously. That didn't take long, did it?
It was really simple.
Thank you very much.
Wait till we get to something that's earth-shattering.
That was pretty earth-shattering from lately.
Oh, my God. I was thinking about leaving myself. Okay, planning and zoning, 8.1, PCN 13011, consideration of possible action on a request for final approval of an amendment to the Galleria Station Plan Development Handbook. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, council members. Tim Thompson, Senior Planner for the record. These next 2 items are companion items. The first is a request for final approval of the amendment to the Galleria Station Plan Development Handbook. As you may recall, the property is located to the east of Galleria Parkway, just north of the Costco. The project consisted of a condominium project. Unit 1, which is to the south, is partially built. I believe there's 9 pads left for additional condo buildings. Unit 2, located to the north, has been vacant, and the applicant has proposed to amend the handbook to allow for single-family residential. And the final handbook is in substantial conformance with the tentatively approved handbook. I think there was some minor editorial changes made. Otherwise, it is exactly what the council saw when you approved it previously, so staff would recommend that you approve the final handbook for Galleria Station.
Questions, Mr. Lawson?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Public hearing.
I'm ready to listen to public hearing.
Mr. Kerrigan.
So are we going to require them to sprinkle every one of these houses? Just kidding.
Ted's shaking his head no, and I don't even have to look at him.
He's not laughing, though.
I know he didn't smile.
Would the applicant like to say anything? Okay. All right, we'll do 8.1 first. This is a public hearing on 8.1. Anyone in the audience like to speak to this particular agenda item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for action. Mr. Schmidt.
I think there's just a question. I want to go on record. The homeowner association has, the condos next door has agreed to all the changes. Yes.
My understanding is that that the homeowners association has been informed about these changes, and as a board, they have agreed with the changes. I believe there was one gentleman that showed up at the planning commission hearing that was not in favor, but I believe the association as a whole is agreeable.
Does anybody know what ward this is in? Okay. Questions of staff or applicant?
Ward
Looking
5.
for a motion. Used to be Tony's award. Mr. Schmidt.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the tentative map associated PCN 13013 adopting findings T1 through T12 and the facts supporting these findings are set forth in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval 1 through 15 in the staff report.
We have a second?
That's the wrong that's the wrong
Mr.
one, I
Schmidt.
think.
Which one are we on? It's supposed to be 8.1?
8.1.
Oh, excuse me, I jumped to one.
That's all right.
So you just want to make a motion on 8.1?
Same thing. I move to approve PCN as final draft, substantial compliance with the city council's action with tentative approval of Galleria Station Plan Development Handbook. The facts supporting these findings are set forth in the staff.
Mr. Smith.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Schmidt, second by Councilman Smith to approve 8.1. PCN 13011. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Ms. Reddy. Passes unanimously. 8.2, any discussion? This is a public hearing. I'll open to the public. Anyone want to speak to this particular item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for action. Any questions of staff or applicant? Looking for a motion. Mr. Schmidt.
I'll repeat my previous wrong motion for 8.2.
Do you have a second, Mr. Smith?
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Smith to approve 8.2 PCN 3013. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Do you have a closed door, Sean? Comments from the public? Anyone who want to speak under comments from the public? Comments from the city council and city manager? Mr. Carey?
I do have an announcement. It's the third and final reading of our appointment to a committee for the Truckee River Fund Advisory Committee. This committee meets every 2 months to review projects with potential benefit for the river. Applicants should be very familiar with the Truckee River watershed and have a technical expertise to evaluate and select projects. There's no set term, and members serve at the pleasure of the Sparks City Council. If you're interested in applying for this position, we would invite you to submit a community service application to our city clerk's office, and would also invite you to apply online at www.cityofsparks. Click on Governing on our city webpage, and then click to Boards and Commissions and get involved. At that point, you will see an application which you can fill out and submit. Should you have should you have questions regarding this position and the duties of this committee, you could call Dr. Tracy Turner at the Community Foundation of Western Nevada, and that phone number would be 333-5499. We will close applications for this position on Monday, September 16th, at which time they will be forwarded to the mayor and then brought forth to the city council for action. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no further business, we're adjourned.